Some mysteries are so strange, so chilling, that even decades or centuries later, they still have us asking, what really happened? From cryptic codes to horrifying crimes, these cases remain unsolved. But what if the truth was hidden for a reason? Some aren't just unsolved, they're suppressed. Lost evidence, silenced witnesses, clues that lead to dead ends. And the deeper you look, the more questions you find. These aren't just puzzles, they're secrets someone, or something, doesn't want uncovered. So let's dive into 5 of these mind-bending mysteries, the ones that refuse to be explained, and may stay buried forever. Number 5, the Black Dahlia. In a city built on dreams, Elizabeth Short chased her own slice of stardom. Instead, she became the star of Hollywood's darkest mystery. Not on the silver screen as she'd hoped, but in headlines that would haunt Los Angeles for generations. They called her the Black Dahlia, and her story would make Raymond Chandler's noir fiction look tame by comparison. Picture Los Angeles, 1947. The war is over, Hollywood is booming, and optimism fills the air like the scent of orange blossoms. But on January 15th, in a vacant lot on Norton Avenue, a mother and her child are about to stumble upon a scene that will shatter the city's post-war innocence forever. Elizabeth Short wasn't supposed to end up in a vacant lot in Lamert Park. Born in Boston in 1924, she was a dark-haired beauty with pale skin and a winning smile. Just one of thousands of young women who'd come to Los Angeles chasing celluloid dreams. But while others were finding their way onto studio lots, Elizabeth was finding it harder to keep her head above water in a city that had a habit of drowning its dreamers. The discovery of her body wasn't just a murder, it was a production, staged with the kind of grotesque artistry that would have made even the most hardened crime scene investigators reach for the whiskey bottle. Bisected at the waist with surgical precision, drained of blood, posed with deliberate care, her face carved into a perpetual smile that looks like Heath Ledger's Joker. This wasn't just a crime of passion or opportunity. This was performance art authored by a monster. The Los Angeles PD threw everything they had at the case. They interviewed over 150 suspects, chased down thousands of leads, and generated enough paperwork to fill a library wing. But the killer had left them a puzzle with missing pieces, and some of those pieces seemed determined to stay missing. Enter George Hodel, a prominent Los Angeles physician whose name would become inextricably linked to the case, though not until years after his death and through the most unlikely of sources, his own son. Steve Hodel, a retired Los Angeles PD homicide detective, would later build a compelling case against his father, painting a portrait of a brilliant but twisted mind capable of turning murder into macabre theater. But wait, the killer wasn't done with his performance. Like a director unsatisfied with his reviews, he sent a package to the police containing Elizabeth's personal effects, her birth certificate, photos, even her name written in tiny letters clipped from newspaper headlines. It was as if he was taunting them, saying, "Here's everything except what you need to catch me." The media, never ones to let facts get in the way of a good story, painted Elizabeth as a femme fatale, a woman of mystery and questionable morals. The truth, as it often is, was far more mundane and far more tragic. She was just a young woman trying to make it in a town that had perfected the art of breaking dreams. The investigation spawned theories like Hollywood spawns sequels. Some pointed to doctors noting the surgical precision of the cuts. Others suggested powerful figures in the movie industry, hinting at covered-up scandals. A few even proposed a connection to the Cleveland torso murders, as if one unsolved horror story needed a crossover episode. 7 decades later, the Black Dahlia case remains officially unsolved, though it spawned more books, films, and TV shows than some of the movies Elizabeth dreamed of starring in. It's become a dark fairy tale about Hollywood's shadows, a cautionary story about the price of fame, and a reminder that sometimes the most frightening monsters aren't on the movie screen, they're walking among us. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of the case isn't the gruesome details or the unanswered questions. It's the possibility that someone out there knows exactly what happened. Maybe they're gone now, having taken their secrets to the grave. Or maybe, just maybe, they're still out there. An elderly person who keeps a very old secret locked away with very old memories. Elizabeth Short came to Los Angeles to see her name in lights. Instead, she became immortalized in shadow. The Black Dahlia, the girl who wanted to be a star and became something far more haunting. A mystery that Los Angeles has never been able to solve or forget. In the end, her story isn't just about an unsolved murder. It's about the dark side of the American dream, where sometimes the price of fame is paid in ways no one could have imagined. And somewhere in Los Angeles, a city built on making dreams come true, Elizabeth Short's mystery killer got away with a nightmare. And speaking of mysteries, there's one last puzzle to solve. Why haven't you subscribed yet? If you love diving into the unknown and the unsolved, then hit that subscribe button and join us as we uncover more stories that refuse to stay buried. After all, some secrets fade with time, but the best ones, they only get darker. Number 4. The Zodiac Killer. Picture this. It's a peaceful evening in Northern California, late 1960s. The Beatles are on the radio, flower power is in full swing, and somewhere in the darkness, a man is writing a letter that will make the summer of love feel more like the winter of terror. I like killing people because it is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, he wrote, probably not winning any points with Pater or the local police department. This wasn't your typical Dear John letter, unless John worked at the local newspaper and had a strong stomach for criminal confessions. Welcome to the story of the Zodiac Killer, the serial murderer who turned Northern California into his personal game of deadly chess, complete with cryptic puzzles that would make your Sunday crossword look like child's play. But before he became the puzzle-loving pen pal of the press, our mystery man made his deadly debut on December 20th, 1968. Two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, had the misfortune of parking on what they thought was a quiet lover's lane in Benicia, California. They couldn't have known their date night would become chapter 1 in a terror story that would span decades. Just when the police thought they were dealing with a standard, albeit tragic, murder case, our killer decided to spice things up. 6 months later, he struck again, this time leaving something rare in the world of serial killers: a survivor. Michael Mageau lived to tell the tale after the killer attacked him and Darlene Ferrin in Malaysia. Finally, the police had a face to work with, though Guy, who looks like your average 1960s dad, wasn't exactly narrowing down the suspect pool. But here's where our villain's flair for the dramatic kicked in. Rather than laying low like any sensible murderer, he decided to become the world's deadliest pen pal. He sent letters to 3 newspapers because apparently one wasn't enough for his ego. Inside each envelope was a cipher, because apparently regular confession letters were too mainstream. When finally cracked, the message revealed our killer's disturbing philosophy about hunting humans, signed with what became his trademark: a crosshair symbol that looked like a gun sight mixed with a game of tic-tac-toe. Just when investigators thought they had seen it all, the Zodiac decided to take his theatrical tendencies to the next level. In September 1969, he showed up at Lake Berryessa wearing what can only be described as the world's worst Halloween costume: a black hood with his symbol on it. It was like Comic-Con meets Criminal Minds, but with real victims: Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Hartnell survived to tell the tale of their hooded attacker, adding another piece to an increasingly puzzling portrait. 2 weeks later, in what felt like a twisted episode of Taxi Driver, he murdered cab driver Paul Stein in San Francisco. In a move that would make modern CSI teams cringe, he took a piece of Stein's bloody shirt, not as a simple trophy, but as proof to mail to the press. Because apparently, his word wasn't good enough anymore. The investigation that followed was like watching the world's most frustrating game of Clue. The prime suspect, Arthur Lee Allen, seemed perfect. He matched descriptions, had a creepy fascination with the case, and was even identified by a survivor. But then DNA evidence said, not so fast, and just like that, investigators were back to square one. Decades later, we're still scratching our heads. The Zodiac ciphers have spawned an entire cottage industry of amateur codebreakers. The 340 cipher remained uncracked until 2020, probably causing great frustration to generations of puzzle enthusiasts. When it was finally solved, it revealed more creepy messages. Thanks for that, Zodiac. Today, the case remains open, like a book with missing pages. Did he die? Is he in prison for another crime? Or is he still out there, an elderly man chuckling at true crime documentaries about himself? We may never know. But one thing's for certain. In the annals of criminal history, the Zodiac Killer turned murder into performance art, leaving behind a legacy that continues to fascinate and frighten in equal measure. The most unsettling part? Someone, somewhere, might know exactly who he is. Maybe they're watching this right now, thinking about their mysterious old uncle who was really into puzzles and had questionable hobbies in the 60s. If that's you, maybe don't keep that family secret to yourself. Number 3. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Imagine losing your car in a parking lot. Frustrating, right? Now imagine losing a 209-foot-long Boeing 777 with 239 people aboard in the entire Indian Ocean. That's not just frustrating. That's precisely what happened with Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, and it's possibly the greatest aviation mystery since Amelia Earhart decided to play hide-and-seek with the Pacific. Picture this, March 8, 2014, 12:41 a.m. A perfectly ordinary Boeing 777-200ER takes off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. The weather's fine, the crew's experienced, and 239 people are settling in for what should have been a routine flight to Beijing. Some are probably already asleep, others perhaps browsing the in-flight magazine, and blissfully unaware they're about to become part of one of aviation's most baffling disappearing acts. At 1:19 a.m., Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah's voice crackles over the radio. "Good night, Malaysian 370. It's the kind of mundane radio call that happens thousands of times every day in cockpits around the world. Except this time, it would be the last words anyone would ever hear from MH370. The plane was about to pull off a vanishing act that would make David Copperfield jealous. Minutes later, something went terribly wrong. Or did it? The aircraft quite literally went off script, taking a sharp turn that wasn't part of any flight plan known to air traffic control. Military radar later tracked it, making a dramatic U-turn over Malaysia before heading out toward the vast Indian Ocean. Like a metallic whale deciding midway through its journey that Beijing wasn't its cup of tea after all. What followed was the aviation equivalent of searching for a needle in a haystack. If the haystack was the size of Australia, and the needle could move at 500 miles per hour. Over 20 countries joined forces in what became the most expensive search operation in aviation history. Ships, planes, satellites, even psychics and conspiracy theorists threw their hats into the ring. The only thing missing was the plane itself. The mystery deepened when satellite data revealed that MH370 had continued flying for nearly 7 hours after its last communication. 7 hours. That's enough time to watch The Wolf of Wall Street, with time left over for snacks. But where was it going? And more importantly, why? As the search dragged on, theories multiplied faster than rabbits in springtime. Mechanical failure? Pilot suicide? Hijacking? Alien abduction? Yes, someone actually suggested that. Some theories were plausible, others belonged in the X-Files. But without the black box or the fuselage, they all remained just that, theories. The only concrete evidence came in the form of debris washing up on distant shores, pieces of wing and cabin that were confirmed to be from MH370. These fragments told us one thing for certain. The plane had ended up in the water. Everything else remained as clear as mud. But beyond the aviation mystery lies a human tragedy. For the families of those 239 people, MH370 isn't just a fascinating puzzle, it's a wound that won't heal. Imagine never knowing what happened to your loved ones, living in a perpetual state of uncertainty. Did they suffer? Are they somehow still out there? It's the kind of psychological torture that no one should have to endure. The disappearance of MH370 did lead to some changes in aviation. Airlines now track their planes more carefully, probably wondering why they hadn't thought of that before. But these improvements are cold comfort to those still waiting for answers. Today, MH370 serves as a humbling reminder that even in our age of satellites, smartphones and social media, where you can track a pizza delivery in real time, a massive commercial airliner can still vanish without a trace. Somewhere in the depths of the Indian Ocean lies the answer to aviation's greatest modern mystery. Until it's found, MH370 will remain the flight that transformed goodbye into goodnight Malaysian 370. Words that continue to echo through the corridors of aviation history. And perhaps the most unsettling thought of all? The next time you're on a plane looking out at those fluffy clouds, remember, we still don't know exactly what happened to MH370. Sweet dreams, and don't forget to fasten your seatbelt. Number 2. The Voynich Manuscript. Imagine discovering a book that makes the Da Vinci Code look like C-spot run. A manuscript so mysterious that it stumped codebreakers, linguists, and even modern AI. Welcome to the Voynich Manuscript, the world's most elaborate medieval trolling attempt, or perhaps humanity's greatest unsolved puzzle. Picture this. It's 1912, and Polish book dealer Wilfred Voynich is probably having what he thinks is a normal Tuesday, rummaging through some dusty Italian monastery shelves. Instead, he stumbles upon what would become the bibliographic equivalent of a middle finger to the entire academic world. A beautifully illustrated book written in a language that doesn't exist, featuring plants that never grew, and star charts mapping a universe that's not quite ours. Carbon dating tells us this cosmic joke was crafted between 1404 and 1438, which means someone has been confusing the smartest people in the world for over 600 years. That's dedication to the bit. The manuscript itself is like someone took a medieval medical textbook, a botanical guide, and an astronomer's dream journal, threw them in a blender, and recorded the results in alien hieroglyphics. Its 240 pages are divided into sections that seem perfectly logical until you actually look at them. The herbal section. Imagine your local plant guide, but every species looks like it was designed by Dr. Seuss. Want to know what that weird blue flower with faces in its leaves is called? Too bad. It doesn't exist anywhere except these pages. The astronomical section contains perfectly circular diagrams of stars and zodiac signs that would make Copernicus scratch his head and reach for a drink. It's like someone tried to map the cosmos after eating some of those weird plants from the previous section. The biological section features what appears to be tiny naked people playing in elaborate plumbing systems filled with green liquid. Medieval spa day? Ancient water park blueprints? Your guess is as good as the world's leading experts. The pharmaceutical section shows mysterious jars and containers that look like they belong in Dumbledore's private collection. They might contain ancient medicine or medieval shampoo recipes. We literally have no idea. The recipes section. Dense paragraphs of text that might be anything from cooking instructions to alchemical formulas for turning lead into gold. Since no one can read it, your grandmother's secret cookie recipe is probably safer. But here's the real kicker, the text itself. It's written in a flowing script that looks perfectly legitimate, following all the statistical patterns of a real language. It has structure, grammar, and consistency. The only tiny problem? It's complete gibberish. Or is it? Over the centuries, everyone from professional cryptographers to conspiracy theorists has taken a crack at it. World War II codebreakers who helped defeat the Nazis? Stumped. Modern supercomputers? Confused. AI language models? They just shrug in binary. The theories are as colorful as the manuscript's illustrations. Some say it's the work of Roger Bacon, medieval England's answer to Leonardo da Vinci, encoding secret scientific knowledge. Others suggest it's an elaborate hoax, though carbon dating makes that about as likely as finding one of those bizarre plants in your garden. Some believe it's an extinct language, perhaps the last remnant of a lost civilization. The more imaginative crowd suggests alien origin, because apparently extraterrestrials had nothing better to do in the 15th century than drop off an illustrated manuscript and ghost us for 600 years. The manuscript has become so famous that it's spawned its own cottage industry of Voynich researchers, each convinced they're one cup of coffee away from cracking the code. It's appeared in everything from the X-Files to indie games, proving that even if you can't read it, you can still monetize it. But perhaps the most delicious irony? In our age of quantum computing and artificial intelligence, when we can clone sheep and send robots to Mars, we're still being outsmarted by a medieval book that might just be the world's longest-running practical joke. So the next time you're struggling with a crossword puzzle, take comfort in knowing that somewhere in Yale's rare book library, yes, that's where it lives now, there's a manuscript that's been giving humanity the equivalent of a mathematical wedgie for 6 centuries. And maybe, just maybe, there's a medieval scribe laughing in the afterlife, wondering how long it'll take us to realize it's just an elaborate recipe for really good cheese. Let's face it, if a 600-year-old manuscript can keep humanity guessing, our channel can definitely keep you entertained. And you can definitely smash that subscribe button faster than cryptographers can decode the Voynich Manuscript. So you go ahead and do that. Number 1. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. Picture 9 experienced hikers trudging through the pristine snow of Russia's Ural Mountains in 1959. They're laughing, taking photos, writing in their diaries, completely unaware they're about to star in one of history's most perplexing mysteries. If this were a horror movie, you'd be screaming, "Don't go up that mountain." But this isn't fiction. This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident, and it's about to make your favorite campfire ghost story look like a bedtime tale. Our story begins with 10 friends. Yes, 10. Remember that number, because it's about to become tragically important. Led by Igor Dyatlov. Spoiler alert, things go badly enough that they name the place after him. These weren't your average weekend warriors posting hiking on Instagram. They were elite adventurers training for the Soviet Union's highest ski touring certification. Think Olympic athletes meets wilderness survival experts. But here's where fate throws its first curveball. Yuri Yudin gets sick and turns back. Congratulations, Yuri. You've just won the lottery of life by catching a cold. The remaining 9 continue their journey, documenting their progress with photographs that would later feel like postcards from the Twilight Zone. Then, on a slope called Kolat Syakul, which literally means dead mountain in the local Mansi language, because apparently the universe wasn't being ominous enough, something happened. Something so terrifying that it made 9 highly trained mountaineers flee their tent in such panic that they cut their way out from the inside. In February, in the Urals, in temperatures of -30 degrees Fahrenheit, some were barefoot. Let that sink in. What could be so horrifying that you'd choose certain frostbite over staying in your tent? When searchers finally found the campsite on February 26th, it looked like the world's worst advertisement for camping equipment. The tent was standing but slashed from the inside, with all the group's belongings still neatly arranged. Outside, footprints in the snow told a story of panic. 9 people running, some barefoot, some in socks, all heading downhill toward a nearby forest. Now brace yourself, because this is where things get weird. Really weird. The first 2 bodies were found under an old cedar tree. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko had died of hypothermia, but they were partially undressed despite the killing cold. Even stranger, they had inexplicable burns and bruises, and the tree showed signs that they had desperately tried to climb it. What were they looking at? What were they running from? 3 more bodies were found between the tree and the tent. Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin had apparently been trying to return to the tent when they fell. Slobodin's skull was fractured, but doctors said it wasn't enough to kill him. The cold got him first. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on your fondness for sleeping outdoors. 2 months later, the remaining 4 hikers were found in a ravine, buried under 13 feet of snow. And these bodies? They looked like they'd been in a car crash. Without the car, Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Taryov had major chest trauma. Their ribs were crushed inward with a force that one doctor compared to a car crash. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol's had a crushed skull. Alexander Kolovavatov showed signs of a compelling natural force. Oh, and just to add an extra sprinkle of strange to this Mystery Sunday, Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her facial tissue. Some of their clothes were radioactive. Yes, you heard that correctly. Radioactive. The official Soviet investigation concluded the deaths were caused by a compelling natural force. Thanks for clearing that up, comrades. Real helpful. In 2021, Russian authorities officially blamed it on an avalanche, a theory that raises more questions than it answers, like why no avalanche debris was found, or how an avalanche caused radioactive clothing, or why experienced mountaineers would set up camp in an avalanche zone, or why some victims were partially undressed in lethal cold, or, well, you get the picture. Other theories? Take your pick. Military weapons testing, infrasound-induced panic, the Yeti, it was the Soviet Union in the 50s, why not? UFOs, secret government experiments, or angry local spirits. Each theory explains some elements while leaving others frustratingly unexplained. Today, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains a perfect storm of unsettling elements. 9 inexplicably terrified victims, paradoxical behavior, unexplainable injuries, mysterious radiation, and a government investigation that reads like a masterclass in vague conclusions. So the next time you're planning a camping trip, remember, sometimes the real mystery isn't what's out there in the darkness. It's why 9 experienced hikers would flee their only shelter, choosing certain death in the cold over whatever was frightening enough to make them cut their way out of their tent. Sleep tight, campers. As much as we want closure, some stories refuse to give us one. The Voynich Manuscript remains unreadable. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains unexplained. The Black Dahlia case remains unsolved. And maybe that's what makes them so unforgettable. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also remember to keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.